Hey everyone, Effie here. For today's video, I created this card with some Zig markers and our Lucky Tulip stamp set. So I started off with a 4.5 inch by 6 inch watercolor paper panel. I had one entire sheet from a 9 by 12 inch watercolor paper pad, and I basically cut it in half on going both ways, vertical and horizontal, to end up with 4 panels of this size. So I took my Lucky Tulip stamp and I heat embossed it onto the watercolor panel with some gold glitter embossing powder. Now I'm going to start watercoloring my tulip with my Zig markers. I'm starting off with a number 21 light carmine, and I put some of the color directly on the edges of my petals on the inner side, and then I'm taking a water brush and I'm blending that color out to the outer petals. So you're going to have a little bit of darkness, or rather shading, on the inner petals, and then it's going to come out a little lighter towards the edge, and it's going to give it a nice variation of shading and depth to the flower. I applied the same technique to each petal on the entire flower. So once I was finished with the number 21 carmine, the entire flower was colored in. After I finished with the number 21, I'm going to go in with a darker pink, which is my number 27 dark pink. My technique for this darker shade of pink is going to be different. After I put down the color, I'm just going to pull the color out just a little bit to blend it out, but I'm not going to go into the entire petal with this darker pink. So I'm going to go in and add some darker shading to all of my petals, and I'm just applying the dark pink to the edges. Next, I'm just going to add a little bit more shading with my number 82 purple, which is basically a really dark pink, and I'm just going to go in on some of the edges of the petals of my tulip. By adding just a tiny bit of this darkest tone gives the tulip a little bit more pop. You can totally do without this and it'll look fine, but I just wanted to give the tulip just a little bit more depth. After I finished with the petals, I put down a base layer of 2 greens on my stems and leaves. I actually forgot to hit the record button, so you just see me painting my darkest shade of green. So for my greens, I did use a number 41 and number 45 light green and pale green for my base layer, and here you see me going in with a number 44 deep green to add that extra depth and shading to my leaves and the stem. I apologize for not getting the entire painting process into this video. I just forgot to hit the record button for the base layer, but I promise I will upload another video soon where I show the entire process with my greens. So here's my finished tulip. I love the contrasting of the pinks and greens against that gold glitter, but I'm not finished with my Zig markers yet. I did take a number 10 black and I added kind of a black glow around my tulip to give a little bit more of a dramatic effect to my watercolor panel. After I painted that black outline around my entire tulip, I took the same black Zig marker and I scribbled a little bit on the lower hand corner of my panel, and then I went over it with my water brush to give it a slight wash, and then I gold glitter heat embossed the sentiment right above that wash. Next, I took the second largest die in our double stitch rectangle dies and I die cut my watercolor panel, and this die puts stitching on the inside and outside of the cut line, but we're only using that inside watercolor panel for today's card. Next, I took a side folding black A2 card base and I heat embossed our Haute stripes directly onto that card base, and I'm using that same gold glitter embossing powder that I used for our watercolor panel. There's something magical about watching embossing powder melt, especially if it's glitter embossing powder, and I love using glitter embossing powder because it makes your entire card glow. So next I took that same rectangle die that I used earlier and I die cut a piece from black cardstock, and then I adhered it onto my card base, and then I adhered my watercolor panel right above that black cardstock. So for my last step, I added some Sittin pretty pink sequins and some iridescent fairy pink sparkling clear sequins to finish off my card. I thank you all so much for joining me today. I had a lot of fun painting this card because Zig markers They're one of my favorite mediums to paint with because they're so easy to blend with each other and on top of each other. So thanks for joining me today, guys, and I'll see you next time. Bye!